Have you guys ever seen the React channel on YouTube?
No.
Johnny Ray, React channel?
No.
So they've got these great videos, and there's a series of them. They kind of do different themes, but basically they get children, teenagers, and elderly folk. Not too elderly, usually like over maybe 50. So older generation folk. And they sit them down and they have them do something and react to it. Maybe it's watching a K-pop video, or maybe it's like with the kids, they'll have the kids react to technology, old technology.
Yeah.
So they'll like bring out an old rotary phone and sit it in front of them and see if the kids can figure out. I mean, these kids are great with the smartphone, right? Can they figure out the old rotary phone? And the reactions are priceless in some cases. Some of the things that these kids say, they're probably all under 10.
I saw the one with the phone. Those kids are adorable.
They're so cute, but the things they say are hilarious as well. Just the observations, out of the mouths of babes, the observations they make about some of the features of these old devices. Well, one of the more recent ones is kids react to typewriters, and I mean these things. They're just amazing old pieces of technology that are so clunky and so ridiculous in comparison to what people are used to now. Now, if you want to type and you've got a smartphone, you don't even have to lift your finger up from the phone. Of course, 20 years from now, we'll all be looking back at smartphones and wondering what the hell we were doing. But it's just amazing to watch the youth of today looking at this old tech.
I do often think of, I learned on a Selectric too.
Mm-hmm. And what's that?
Is
that one of those electronic typewriters?
You turn it on and it hums. Mm-hmm. Tick. Right? And it was, I don't know, it was all sort of this one piece, form-fitted. It looks very sort of modern when modern was modern instead of modern being old as hell. And, you'd hit the buttons and it tack, 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 tack. It had the spherical typing thing, not the arms didn't come up and strike the page. Yeah. It had it had the letters all on one spherical ball.
I never had one of those things.
Yeah, those electric typewriters were really, really powerful seeming.
They were powerful. Like you could lose a finger in there if you weren't careful.
My parents actually had an electric typewriter that you could type a line in first, and it would then print the whole line. So it was like kind of halfway between.
Yeah, that was like a
process.
word processor.
Yeah, that's one of the early word processor things, like a Brother or something like that. That's I remember those too.
But I also remember the old clack clack where the wire.
I learned on these things I should be able to handle typos. No, I mean I'm terrible. I have to go back, click, backspace.
So there's amazing news about the typewriter that I'm going to share with you when we come back here in moments. This is Free Talk Live. You can share your thoughts. I was talking briefly last hour about the kind of the continuing failure of the newspaper business to stay relevant, to stay profitable. I mean, it's tough. As we were just discussing with Greg in New York in the last hour, discussing the idea of decentralization and how it's being applied in a lot of different places. Of course, Bitcoin, this decentralized currency, great example of how decentralization can disrupt old technology, in this case, the old money system, the banking system. With the internet, that has disrupted old media. Whereas, it used to be that there were certain gatekeepers in the media world. If you owned a newspaper, you were a gatekeeper. If you wanted, you hired people to write for you, presumably you would hire people who would probably have a specific editorial viewpoint that you wanted to promote. I mean, come on, let's be honest, that everybody in a newsroom has a viewpoint. So that's the way it went. Television stations, of course, originally there were a few. Technology like cable and satellite gave more bandwidth, more ability to avoid the FCC's control, and more ability to create other channels. That's why there are hundreds of channels today. But then the internet expanded that even further. So instead of hundreds of cable channels, now there are countless. I mean, just unlimited numbers of YouTube videos.
Millions?
Maybe billions at this point. I mean, there's probably millions uploaded every minute to YouTube. I don't know what the current statistics are, but I remember the last time I looked at them, they were pretty mind-bending, the amount of gigabytes per minute that are being uploaded to YouTube's servers, and all of that's being retained. It's not like YouTube has placed some sort of, this hasn't been watched in a while, so we're going to take it offline policy, which they could do if they wanted to,
They just don't.
They just don't. They just keep piling it in there. So now there's more choices in the video world than ever before. There's more choices in the audio universe than ever before. It can be argued that Free Talk Live would not exist were it not for the internet. There's a solid argument for that. We've built our business on the back of the internet. Now, maybe we could have broken into the old media in the past and done it without the internet, but I don't think it would have been possible because our success is really dependent on connecting directly with our listeners, like with the Free Talk Live AMP program, having listeners like you support the show for $5 a month, and then we can take that and invest it into doing more radio industry advertising and help get on more radio stations around the country.
Right. Like a lot of people think that Free Talk Live was somehow a podcast that made it into radio.
No.
And that is an inaccurate statement. However, there's some accuracy in it in sort of the feel of it. Free Talk Live has always been a radio program, but we needed the internet to connect directly to people, the spread out people that have the ideas of liberty, that understood these things. And we needed their support initially. So we were a radio program, but we were also a podcast, and it sort of supported us early on. And so it was important.
I learned about Free Talk Live on the internet, and the first episode of Free Talk Live that I ever heard was downloaded from the internet.
Of course, and that's the way a lot of people come into this program. But thankfully, old media is helping us as well because we are on over 160 FCC licensed radio stations around the country, and they still have listeners. So that's another way
goodness,
to.
Yeah, they've got a lot of listeners.
Yeah, I just want to be wherever the listeners are. I don't care.
Majority of them. Still.
I don't care how they're listening. I just want them to have the opportunity to hear the show and decide whether they like it for themselves. Now, unfortunately, the newsrooms of the world, radio stations are still out there. They're kind of having a tougher time than they used to in the past as far as selling advertising and doing their business. Television stations, obviously, they're having a little bit more of a difficult time. But those two technologies are still still somewhat relevant to people today, to folks that have older habits. Even though, you could argue that radio and television, or broadcast television specifically, are becoming less relevant to the youth of America. There's a solid argument for that.
I think less relevant, but still many young people are finding their new music on radio, according to the polls that are out there. So I think that a lot of people think that broadcast is less relevant today than it in fact is.
I think that could be true. Certainly people that are ensconced within the new media may think that about old media, and they don't realize how many users are still there. But newspapers, it can't be argued. There's no argument at all. They are flailing for relevance and flailing to keep their profits, flailing to keep their customers who are literally dying off. Here's a story from The Independent over in the UK about the Times and their newsroom. Almost as if the digital revolution never happened, the newsroom of the Times, and I suspect that's the Times of London, once again resounds to the clatter of the old-fashioned typewriter. Nearly 3 decades after Rupert Murdoch's UK newspaper publisher revolutionized the industry by moving to whapping and ending the hot metal era, his flagship title has reintroduced the distinctive sound of Old Fleet Street. To the surprise of Times journalists, a tall speaker on a stand has been erected in the newsroom to pump out typewriter sounds. They say to increase energy levels and help reporters hit deadlines.
You've got to be kidding me.
I can't even believe this is real, but the Telegraph, The Independent isn't this isn't like The Onion. This isn't satire. The audio begins with the gentle patter of a single typewriter and slowly builds to a crescendo, with the keys of ranks of machines hammering down as the paper's print edition is due to go to press. The development, which was described as a trial today by publisher News UK, has caused some bemusement among journalists, one of whom tried unsuccessfully to turn the sound off. The idea is one of a series of experiments introduced as the Times and other News UK titles have departed Wapping for new offices. That's a location. For new offices in the Baby Shard London Bridge in South London. The Times initiative coincides with a revival of interest in the typewriter, a trend which the newspaper reflected on page 3 today with a report on how actor Tom Hanks has developed the Hanks Writer app, which simulates the sound of an old-fashioned typewriter and has gone to the top of the iTunes App Store in the United States. Is this true? Has Tom Hanks created a typewriter app for iPhones? Can someone fact check this for me, please? So bizarre. Hanks,
that is bizarre. I'm agog at this weird article.
Hanks, it noted, can tell the difference between the
Look
sounds.
at the date on this. Is it April 1st?
No, this is Tuesday, the 26th of August, 2014. Hanks, it noted, can tell. Look this up, please. Hanks Writer, Hanx, second word writer as normal. Hanks, it noted, can tell the difference between the sounds of an Olivetti, a Remington, and a Royal typewriter model. Whether the journalists of the Times feel a similar...
New York Times, what makes the Hanks Writer click?
Let's find out more about that in a moment. Whether journalists on the Times feel a sense of nostalgia is unclear. George Brock, former journalist from the Times and professor of journalism at the university... at City University in London, said the sound was unlikely to rekindle memories among current staff. He said typewriters disappeared from newsrooms in the late 1980s. There will be very few people there who remember the noise of massed bands of typewriters in the newsroom. We'll have to find out whether a crescendo of noise will make reporters work better or faster. I just think this is such a bizarre story because it just shows the old method of like it strikingly shows the ridiculous old ways of thinking that apply in old media. Like, these guys just don't get it. I understand that, you're having issues with your reporters who are probably in their 20s, just fresh out of college, probably sitting on their phones too long or too often, texting or playing Flappy Bird or whatever it is that that they're doing. And I imagine that's damaging productivity. There's more to distract people with digital technology these days. But
Yes,
I don't think
they're supposed to be efficiency builders. They should be doing as much as any other reporter has ever done.
But the idea that the sounds of old technology, the sounds of typewriters echoing throughout the newsroom is going to somehow bring up productivity to the point where, they're going to turn the business around or at least see some sort of positive motion in some way. It's unbelievable to me. Your thoughts are welcome. It's Free Talk Live. So we were talking about a kind of ridiculous idea to attempt to increase the productivity in the newsroom over at the Times of London. They literally, according to the Independent, independent.co.uk, literally have a speaker in the newsroom that is pumping out the sounds of typewriters.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think it's fine. I'm sure I'd be okay with it, just as long as the loop is
long enough,
longer than 5 seconds or something. It'd
Right.
drive me crazy, if I heard the same loop over and over again. But then again, I could be sitting there instead of working, just trying to find a pattern and trying to see if it was a loop or not. I could
It
see
has to
myself
be.
getting hypnotized by something like that.
It likely has to be a loop unless it's somehow randomly generated. But anyway,
Seems unlikely.
They seem to really be doing this, and then the article goes into this kind of similar bizarre area of mentioning this Tom Hanks developed app, which apparently is the top of the iTunes App Store, according to the Independent. It's not because it's useful. It's because it's a fad, I guess. The Hanks Writer app. Now, Mark, you pulled up more information about this, right?
Yeah, well, I'm looking right here at the iTunes.apple.com, and it's got the screenshot, and it looks like a computer-generated picture of a typewriter, sort of the way you would see it if you were looking at it from the front, if you were using it. It's set up so that you can type on it, so there's some modification, but I'm sure that it has little clicking noises, and when you hit the return, that the little bar thing goes over. It's like a manual, not like a Selectric. And I typed papers on these things. I don't know if you ever had this experience, but I had to type school papers on these things, and I remember, the ribbon and changing out the ribbon and using the arm thing. And
yeah, you got to come at that key from about 3 inches away to make sure you
slam it down.
Sure you got the force necessary.
As a young person, you do. You really sort of have to I was much more of a hunter and pecker back then than I am today. But yeah, you had to have some finger strength to really work a typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
According to this story over at the CBC News, cbc.ca, about the Hanks Writer app, Apparently, it is for iPad. I don't know if that means it will work on the iPhone. I presume that it will. I think there's cross-compatibility there.
It would work there.
I don't know if Android users have the ability to do this.
I don't think it would work on either an iPhone or an Android.
Well, it says it was developed for the iPad, so I don't know. Again, maybe there's going to be an Android app.
It's a size issue.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So actor Tom Hanks has created a free app that attempts to recreate the look, sound, and experience of typing on a typewriter on your iPad. Hanks, two-time Oscar winner for Philadelphia and Forrest Gump, and then he goes on through another laundry list of some of his movies, developed Hanks Writer in partnership with the creative agency HitSense. A clacking sound accompanies the appearance of each letter on a sheet of paper that slides across the screen as you type using the app. He said in a Q&A session on Twitter with the App Store on Thursday when it launched, quote, "I wanted to have the sensation of an old manual typewriter. I wanted the sound of typing, if nothing else." Documents.
I wanted it.
Yep, and he can afford to hire programmers to make it. Documents created with the app can be emailed, printed, and shared. On the iTunes Store, the popular app has earned a rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. One description on the website for HitSense says, quote, "The typewriter experience not only provides tactile pleasure, but you can feel the rhythm of your work with each shook or fit."
Yeah, I think that that's what people are going to like about it is it sort of has that it's nostalgic. It's fun to play with. But I don't think I don't think this is going to replace word processors.
No, I don't think so either. I mean,
word processing programs or whatever it's called.
I mean, I have to wonder, what is the average amount of time someone's spending with this app? Would you just install it and tap a few keys? Oh, isn't that cute? And then quit using the app? I mean, really?
About that would be my guess.
HitSense says Hanks lent the company 3 vintage typewriters from his personal collection.
Oh, he's a typewriter collector. Okay.
That were a fantastic source of inspiration, they said. The company also created 3 fonts crafted after the ink blot letters generated by several vintage typewriters. I wonder what old Tom Hanks had to pay for this app to be developed.
I don't know, but he likes it and doesn't matter.
$50,000?
It could be. Once you said that he's a typewriter collector, it brought up in my mind. I kind of like old radios. I've never purchased one.
Like an old vacuum tube radio, like a gigantic thing from the 1920s or whenever they were coming out.
I like them. I like even better real audio systems that look like old radios. I like those even better. Like you push the button and the CD thing slides out or whatever. The little USBs hidden where you can plug in your iPad, that kind of thing.
They have those?
Yeah, they absolutely have things like that. But so, I mean, what I realized there is this isn't that unusual in the sense that, it's just to make something more attractive or whatever. And if people use this, then they use it. But I don't think they're going to use it too much. That would be my guess.
And I could see some hipster a-holes who are trying to draw attention.
See, I don't even have any
themselves.
relationship to that. I don't know what that means because
aren't
I know
hipsters supposed to do things that are ironic and that kind of thing?
All I know is that
part of it.
I've met a couple of hipsters that ride bicycles with no gears. And
I thought it was no brakes.
No gears.
And no brakes?
Why would they not have brakes?
I don't know, but I
it's
could have sworn
back brake thing. They're probably doing the brake like you had on your bicycle when you were a kid, as opposed to the hand
where you
brakes.
pedal backwards.
I think the real hipster bike though actually does not have even kind of brake. I
think you're correct about that, Johnny Ray. That's what I've heard. I've heard hipster bikes are brakeless.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me, but I have seen them with no gears, and we would have to actually pay more money to get a bike that has no gears than you would that an adult can ride than you would to get a bike that has 10 gears. Like all bikes come with like 10 or 12 or 15 gears now, and you have to pay extra to not have them. And so this, to me, I can't use any word. I want to use a better, nicer word than this besides stupid, but it's the word that's coming to mind for me.
Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREE. You take control here. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.